Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with symcotraining. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I would start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. So listen, as a trainer, you've trained lots of people. You do call recording. You've listened to the good, the great. What do you reckon is the character traits that separates the really top performers from someone who's just average, just ticking along? Is there anything that stands out?
Good conversation people. Look, females do this very naturally. They do it the best out there. They are the best communicators. We find the guys really need a lot of training. I'm a guy, like we're pretty hopeless. I can only focus on one thing at a time. Females just have their communication. I read somewhere that males speak about 7,000 or 8,000 words a day, and females speak about 22,000. And we all know that when we go home to our partners, if your partner's female, I suppose, but you're rung out for the day, and they want to have a chat as well. And then after they have a chat, they'll talk to the mum or whatever on the phone.
I think that's the Alan Pease stuff. I think we heard the same stuff.
It might have been that. I might have R&D'd it from good old Alan. But the thing, because they communicate so well, they listen very well.
Yeah.
And I think as what we can do, if we're very task-driven, we're trying to tick the box on, what your name is, great. What are you looking to buy? Awesome. Have you driven one? Thank you. Are you trading? Great. Would repayments be helpful? All right. When do you want to come in? If it's transactional, that's a bit crappy. So just trying to deflect that first question if people are after the best price or have you got one of these in stock? I think it's where it all starts, and the intro, right? So just that intro, thanks for calling ABC Motors. This is Steve. And the guest will say, hi, Steve, I'm after a whatever vehicle and just want to know your pricing and how soon I can get one. Yeah, great. I'm happy to help you with that. So drop those defenses straight away. Because what we do as salespeople is when someone hits us for the best price, we get defensive, right? So, I'm happy to help you with that, Simon. By the way, how much do you know about the car? Because there's 4 different levels and, depending on what you want, depends on availability and pricing and that kind of stuff. And then if they go, look, I've got some pricing, dig a bit deeper. Yeah, great. How did you go there? Did they look after you? Did you test drive one? What was the experience like? And I gave the example about trade-ins and things like that. But if you just want to have a general rule of thumb, open-ended questions, slow the call down, and invite every guest to come in to the dealership. We find, I'll give you some quick stats, right? So I mentioned before we measure calls. So in terms of sales, talking about trade-in, only 55% of salespeople. This is on a survey we did with 22,000 calls we assessed, right? 55% of salespeople talk about the trade-in. How many people do you think are trading the car in or have a trade?
Well, we know 89% in the UK market, but it's high, right?
Yeah. And these aren't made up fluffy facts. These are dead set, scientifically based evidence data where we've listened to a phone call and scored a score by that. Asking, what suburb are you calling from? It's about 60%. A lot of salespeople still say, are you local? Yeah. And people go, yeah. Like, what does that mean? Right? It could be 20 miles away or 100. Who knows? Things like confirming phone number. So I can see your phone number on my headset is, ends in 707. Is that the best number to contact you back on? Like, that's only about 70%. And the challenge of that is when you're doing follow-up, if you haven't confirmed or asked for the guest phone number, they're going to be thinking for the first minute, how did this dude get my phone number?
Yes, so true.
If you're talking to a lady, they're going to think this guy's a creep, right? Didn't ask my phone number and he's ringing me.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the gold nugget when you're talking to someone on the phone who you haven't spoken to before, and considering the sales calls only go for 3.5 minutes. And we know that because we pay per minute. To the telco, right? Goes to 3.5 minutes. We've been doing this for over 10 years, and it's always 3.5 minutes. So if you don't have a game plan and you don't have a set of questions in front of you that you can sort of just tick off, not a word track, not a script. Just tick off in your own language that you've asked that. You're probably not going to ask a lot of good qualifying questions. And we all know that when we ask for commitment, which is on the phone, you're going to be asking the guests, can they come in maybe this morning or this afternoon? As soon as you start asking for commitment, you're going to get an objection most of the time. All right. So if we haven't qualified very well, you're not going to have any great information to lever off. So an example of that would be, Simon, could you come in today, tomorrow? And you're going to say, yeah, Steve, look, I might do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to check on a few things and I'll get back to you. Reality is you're probably not going to get back to me. So I need to have a comeback. So my comeback to that would be, Simon, look, you only live 3 minutes from us and you've got a trade in, which I mentioned before, but something definitely my used car manager would like to own. And you mentioned you're going to be looking at some dollars per week. So you've got to start your buying journey somewhere. We're only just down the road and you said you drive past us. So if you come in and see me, I'll give you my personal guarantee that I'll maximize your time and I'll give you all the information you need. And then you can see how that all sits with you. So how does that sound? Can we set something up for maybe today? You need to have that answers to those qualifying questions or else you've got nothing to lever on. So I'm saying nothing that none of your listeners don't know. Everyone always goes, yeah, I used to do that. I used to do this. But we forget, all right? We take shortcuts because we get very good at what we do. But the game's about to change.
Yeah, it is. It is. And again, as we said before, salespeople haven't had to do it in COVID times. It's getting back into doing that. Let me get your view. We all know that the customer's buying journey starts online now. Okay, what's it? 19 hours and 42 minutes of research. That's the last figure I've seen. I think it could be a lot more than that there. So how is that changing? Because what I mean by that is more and more of the journey starts digitally. The email comes inquiry, and it's not just email either. Some sort of digital contact saying, "Hey, can you tell me, is the car available? If so, what's your best price?" And all too often, the phone number is either not there or it's 012 345 678. Okay.
Phoning one, right?
Yeah, that's the one. So, how do we go from that digital inquiry to phone? What's your views on how do you use video to get that there, to earn the right there? Do you just say, hey, if you want the best price, call me? We know that doesn't work. What advice do you have for someone who gets those inquiries, that digital inquiry?
I look at the facts, okay? And the facts will help you keep your process. So number one fact is the guest wants to be contacted in the same medium that they made an inquiry on. So if they email you, they want you to email them back. And it's a bit like, when you first meet someone in a relationship, you've got to start off small and work to the bigger stuff, right? So if someone asks you a question, they say, look, this is what I want to buy. Can you give me availability and tell me what your price is? Well, number one, everyone knows stock's a little bit hard to get. So you might have a little bit of a preamble around that. And pricing, well, there's no secret how much vehicles are. It's all over the internet. So maybe I'd start off with that. Now, most salespeople won't even email someone back. So you think, oh, that's not revolutionary. But I've sold cars, not because I've been a superstar, it's because the other guy down the road stuffed it up, right? And the same things happen in the digital age. So if people want to know your availability and your price, why don't you just give it to them? Why make that the world's biggest secret? If you don't give someone a price, how are they ever going to buy from you? Okay, so that's number one. Second thing I want to remind everyone of is that more than 90% of people or more, this is from Cox Automotive data in Australia, 90% of people or more still visit a showroom to purchase a motor vehicle. So 90% of people or more still visit a showroom to purchase a motor car. All right. So logically, I don't know how expensive cars are in the UK, but in Australia, right, they've jumped right up. So if they're spending, whatever, 40,000 to 200,000 Australian dollars to buy a car, is there any reason they want to see it, smell it, touch it, drive it, right? So people want to come into the showroom. So I get an email lead, I'm courteous. I'm trying to build some trust and respect, and I might have some niceties on there. I'll tell you what a nice thing I seen the other day. I got an email for a salesperson, and at the bottom, instead of just saying sales consultant, I think it said like yogi, into fitness, and my dog. It was something like that. Well, the yogi part was right, because I thought, wow, that's a bit left field. But they're trying to personalize what they do. So people do 20 hours or more research on the internet. They will ring 5 to 6 different dealerships. See who's got a deal, and who's got stock and so on. So I think if anyone's out there, when they get that email lead, just answer it. That's the first thing. If you don't answer it, you got no hope.
And quickly, time is so important, and personalize it.
They're at their computer now. So just answer it nice and directly back. As you may know, stock is a little bit limited. We do have cancellations, and we do have our order bank does change from time to time. So I can't give you a definitive, but it is around about 3 months for those sort of cars. The list price of that vehicle is $46,900. At the moment, there are some increases on the horizon. Please let me know how I can help you a bit more. Question mark.
Yeah.
Always, and that's the thing, always finish it with a question mark. If you just answer everything full stop and send it, there's nothing, right? What's that saying? Curiosity killed the cat, right? Get them curious. And then they'll email you back, and then start the dance.
Yeah. And that's what you want. You want a dialogue, don't you? Not a monologue, just not one email. Let's and earn the right. We always say, earn the right to go from digital to phone, earn the right to go from phone to appointment physical, earn the right each time. Is what we need to do. And what's quite interesting, one of the conferences, the last National Automotive Dealers Association, they're talking about the Google reviews and the complaints from some of the big Carvanas in the States, the CarMaxes, where they're pushing this digital retailing, where people just go through and they do it all themselves. And Steve, what I learned from that is they talk about the people who are complaining, the 1-star reviews and all of that. And they're always saying, Bob never got back to me. This lady didn't do this, that didn't that. And I think, well, hold on. People are still part of that process. It's not this magic button where people are going on like Amazon and they're ordering a car. There will be a percentage of the population will do that. We know that. It's going to happen. But 90% of people, as you just said, they're the stats from Cox Automotive Australia, still want to come and touch, feel, and drive the car. People are always going to be part of that process.
Yeah, people want to deal with people. And here's a tester, right? Let's give it can I say bullshit on this?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
The pub test, right? Give it the bullshit test. Like, have a think to yourself. When was the last time you jumped online and bought something for 40 grand and didn't try it out?
Yeah.
You'll buy my wife's got a Dyson vacuum cleaner. She's had Dyson vacuum cleaners for like 20 years. And I'm being sexist out there, ladies, right? She won't let me vacuum because I do a crap job.
Okay.
I got punted from being the vacuum guy, right? I would order a brand new Dyson on the internet, sight unseen, because I know what it is, right? It's $1,000 product, Australian dollar product. You might buy a coffee machine or something like that, where you went to a friend's place, had a coffee. It's a great coffee machine. It's blah, blah. It's a DeLonghi, and it's got the grinder. It's model, SC007 or whatever. And you go, yeah, I'm going to buy that, right? That's all cool. But buying cars sight unseen, it doesn't sit with most people. In the States, they pump it, okay? In the States, here's a stat for you, right? With services, I'll switch to the service guys out there. At Nada, they did a 10-year versus a 10-year. So what happened, where we were 10 years ago, looking at what's coming out, where did we predict the market would be in 10 years? So they gave this stat, like in 2012, online service bookings were 27%. And they said, this is going to take the market by storm, right? Get your portals set up and so on, your websites, all your widgets and so on. 10 years later, 2022, the online booking for services is still 27%, right? So people will go on and see about it, look for availability, suss out your pricing, right? Because no one wants to pay too much. That's still inherent in us, in our DNA. But then they'll pick up the phone and they go, hey, I can see you got a booking here for, Thursday at, 1 p.m. and it's $499. Just want to ask you about that. You know, if I wanted this extra couple of bits done, you know, what do you think that would cost? And then what they also focused on, here's another thing, is spending time with the guests when they drop their vehicle off. That Southwest Ford dealership, they focus on spending 7 minutes with every guest when they drop the vehicle off in the morning. They're spending that 7 minutes of time and, you know, walking them out, show me your car, great, we'll just have a quick walk around. They acknowledge what's very good on the car, and then maybe things that might need doing in 12 months, and they might highlight a couple of things that sort of might need doing today, right? So what they found was their upsells went up dramatically. The service advisors weren't gun shy to make that follow-up upsell call because they had a bit more rapport with the guest. And I know with me, I didn't space my appointments out very well when I was an advisor. We were taking inbound bookings on the counter, and I wasn't that smart to space all my appointments out, right?
Everyone comes at once. Yeah.
Everyone comes at once, right? It's great. You know, you rock up at 7:30 in the morning, there's 8 people at the counter waiting for you. Yeah. What a great way to start the day, right? How silly was I? And so spending that time with the guest at 7 minutes, it stops people migrating to another dealership down the road. And they gave cases of, you know, all the different dealers and all the competitors that they have where people can go to. So again, that spending time with people, and it's getting back to your that question about online selling or online bookings. People still want to talk to people. Okay, so you just focus on, you know, the person that's in front of you. Spend time with them. You've only got to sell 1 car a day. If you work 20 days a month, that's 20 sales a month. You know, you think about those rules of thumb. You know, people want to buy. 90% of people want to buy in a dealership. And here's one other last thing, right? On that, right? The stats are now people only physically visit 1.4 dealerships. And why wouldn't they? They've been on the internet for 20 hours. They've rung 5 or 6 other salespeople. When they come in, they know if you're looking after them or not. So working on that guest experience, trying to keep people in your dealership when they're looking to buy a car is the smart thing to do. Because if people walk out based on the fact they only get a 1.4, how many people are going to come back? Right? So if you're a manager out there, putting that time and effort into training your staff, if you don't have a training budget, you need to have a time training budget instead of a financial training budget. Anyway, it's going to cost you. I believe get a contractor in, they're an expert, that's all they do, right? You're doing a lot of other things as a manager, but if you don't have a training budget, if your dealer principal doesn't want to spend the extra coin, which I think is crazy, when you think of how much money goes into generating leads, might be 20 or 30,000 pounds a month versus how much goes into training, 1,000, right? It doesn't take a genius to work out that figure is skewed. Sometimes it's 0 on training. But if you're training your staff as a manager, you're investing in them and the culture improves. The guest experience improves. The time at the dealership improves. So your grosses will come up. Your closing ratios will go up. If your leads are starting to drop a little bit, all you can do is don't spend any more money generating leads. Improve your closing ratio. Even a couple of percentage points will get you back up to your quota. These are things we all know, right?
Yeah. Hey, listen, there's something I want to go back in time slightly on that one. You right about when the service advisor, when they drop the car off, spending 7 minutes with the people, building rapport. They're not gun shy when they pick up the phone. There's something else I want to just flag up there that really quite sums up the importance of offering things to people. We've got lots of these kiosks over here where people drop the car off themselves and they don't even speak to people. If you booked an airline flight recently, you check your bags in yourself now, you do it yourself. You go to McDonald's, they got the big iPhone where you order the meal yourself. But one thing those systems there, I hated them to start with. I didn't like them. Let me speak to Betty. Let me go and speak to someone. But one thing I would say of those systems is the sale of the value-added products afterwards. It's gone through the roof because a machine's asking people, do you want the 1 litre top-up oil pack? Do you want a full valet detail on the car while it's here today? Would you like the brake fluid done this time? Would you like that? And the machine is getting a higher hit rate than what the service advisor is. Now, I'm not advocating you need to buy one of those machines. If you want to, great. Okay. But what that tells me is if a machine's offering these things and they're getting a hit rate, how much better it can be when our service advisor offers. So I think we just don't offer it all the time.
Oh, yeah. I was reading some service advisor material a couple of months back, and I've got it in my computer somewhere because I kept the document. And they were saying that if you build a good rapport with the guest when they're dropping the vehicle off,
yeah,
the guest is 60% likely to take the service advisor's recommendations, right? And there's a whole document about around facts and what you should do, whatever. And that really stuck in my head. I thought that's so true. But I think a lot of advisors, making those calls because you're so busy. I think making the call, number one, if you're out there, if you're an advisor, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. You might tell me make every outbound call, but I know you don't because I didn't, right? And I'm nothing special. But making the call is number one step. But if you have a bit of good, have some good rapport with your guest, you're more likely to make the call. So think about that when they're dropping their key off. Just, where's your car, Mr. Smith? Hang on, let me have a quick look, just to make sure it's right. See if there's anything they need to talk. Go out of your way. Right, go out of your way. So when you call them, you feel like you've earned the right. Okay, and then ask them. So this is what's really great about your car. This is what's going to need doing in the next 12 to 18 months. And they're thinking, oh yeah, that's good. But this is something I really recommend you get done right now. You should get the wiper blades done on your car. It's really a safety item. And we all know it's something we all put off, right? And there might be something else. And they're more likely to go, yeah, okay, well, how much is that? Okay, yeah, go ahead. Put it on. But we record a lot of advisors' calls, and it will start off like, hey, yeah, it's John here at the dealership. We had a look at your car, and it's a couple of things it's going to need doing. Your wiper blades are a bit worn. We noticed they're chatty on the windscreen, and we noticed an oil leak in your strut, and blah, 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 blah. Your car is RF. All you're saying is you're bagging their car.
Yeah.
So start off with good stuff, just like we would do when you're training. We commend, then we recommend. Advisors out there, if you take that, remember that, commend, then recommend. This is what I recommend you do right now. Providing you've earned the right, spent 7 minutes with them at the start, I know you'll get the upsell, and you've probably got a bonus on those upsells. So hopefully that's a tip for an advisor out there.
Yeah, another tip for advisors as well. If we always say that if I say something needs to be done, of course, you're just trying to sell it. We use the credibility of our tech. We get our techs to go through a process called SWOP, just a simple acronym, SWOP. Okay. Hey, this is what Dave, the technician's seen on your car. Okay. This is why it's occurred. This is the outcome if you don't get it fixed. And this is what Dave recommends. And we always love to give credibility. Listen, Dave, a technician, when he serviced the car, he carried out a complimentary vehicle health check. Listen, as we thought, most areas are green and they're good to go. There's a couple of amber items, which I'll talk about when you pick the car up. There's one area that Dave recommended really needs immediate attention. And that's your front two tires. You only got 0.4 of a millimeter till they're illegal. And actually, you're doubling your brake. But we love to give the credibility of Dave. Dave's the expert. He's the technician. But again, build the rapport early on so they're not gun shy when they make that call. I love it how you said that. Because if a machine, I'll go back to it. If a machine's getting an upsell, how much better it can be when the service advisor's done that and use the credibility and technique of Dave, the technicians.
Yeah,
it works. Hey, so what are your views on the whole EV market? Again, this podcast, most people listen to this is in Europe. We've got a bigger listenership now in Australia, happening all the time, in America and Canada. EVs over here, 2030, we have to go down the EV. That's what the government's saying at the moment with electric vehicles. We don't know if we're going to make it. Will that be pushed back? What's the view on electric vehicles, and how is that changing the Australian market?
Yeah, I don't want to say anything that's sort of political, I suppose, or, non-green and that sort of thing. But how does someone who's retired today, who bought a car a year ago, upgrade their car in 5 years' time? So you think about all the people that are retired and so on. If we go, okay, we go EV vehicle, how do all those people have an electric car when they've always only bought second-hand cars? And there's no electric cars out there second-hand, right? Or, affordable. So I think that's a big problem, number one. The US market, 7.1% of cars in the US are EV, sold EV.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a market of 17.5 million cars. That percentage is deceptive. 20% of that 7.1% is sold in California.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they have a lot of rewards around it. You look at states like Missouri, Texas, and so on, that's like 0.7, 1.2%, super low, right? So the take-up isn't all that great. The internal combustion engine isn't the problem. It's all the crap that comes out the exhaust that's the problem. Carbon monoxide, right? It's the ozone layer and so on. That's a fact, right? And that we don't want that to happen. So I think for me, the best alternative is to work on a conversion to make that internal combustion motor not put out any pollutants, like hydrogen or something like that. And I think that's a better fit. Back in the day, they brought out LPG gas as an alternative. And I remember the government saying, well, you can convert your car, it's going to cost $2,000. We'll give you $1,500 to convert your car. And that was a solution. And I worked in a service station in my younger days, right? And that was a solution for all the oldies that wanted to convert their car and get better, cheaper fuel, instead of paying to be able to pay 1/3 of the fuel price. So bit of a long answer there for EV vehicles. I don't know if it's the total solution. I can jump in my car and go from Sydney to Newcastle, which is 3 hours, do 3 dealership visits, drive 3 hours back, and not have to think about how long I'm going to charge my car. And I'll do that in one day. My trainers are on the road, and they're, their first job might be 70 kilometres away from their home.
Yeah.
And they might have multiple jobs during the day, might do 2 or 3 different dealership visits, and having them worry about, the charging and all that. I know these are sort of, people out there going, God, this guy's so naive, right? He's a dinosaur, right? But that's reality, right? And it's evident on the way of the take-up.
I think the difference is people listen to this in the European market and the UK. We're a lot smaller than Australia. Having grown up in Australia, hey, listen, going from where I live down to Brisbane, you're not going to do that in an EV vehicle.
It's 12 hours. Yeah. It's a 12-hour drive.
Yeah.
People they don't think about it. I went away the other weekend to see my wife's uncle. It was his 80th birthday. The drive was Sydney to Narrabri, right, going out west country. It was 6.5 hours there.
Yeah.
6.5 hours back.
Yeah.
I know there's ways around it and all that sort of thing. That's just that's my personal opinion. But in terms of the market, one of the biggest markets in the world, the US market, still only 7%. Why?
Yeah. Yeah. We have there's a Kia business I was with, James Vortman and I, we did a tour there in London. Now, last year, 64% of the vehicles were EV. So, but the difference is legislation, London, where you are, infrastructure. Now, the infrastructure over here is still nowhere near where it needs to be. A big one for me is that's the way we're pushing there. I think we've got to be
public charging stations over there.
Charging points are still nowhere near the infrastructure that needs to be, but it's a lot more than what I see in the Australian market at the moment.
A lot more. I was at a dealership the other day and we were talking about EVs. It comes up all the time. Yeah. And they said for us to hit our 2030 target with EV vehicles, we need to be installing 350 charging stations a day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
to be able to have proper coverage. I mean, no, that's probably not going to happen. It might have been a week. It's a day or a week. I can't remember. It was a large number. I'm going, whoa, okay.
That's a big old number. That is a big number. So listen, let me ask you then, if you bought your own dealership today, okay, so you decide that Total Selling Solutions, you're going to sell that on, let your son run it, you're going to go and buy your own dealership. What would you do in the next 90 days, the first 2 years of buying that dealer? What would you focus on? And the reason why I ask that question, because if a dealer's sitting there listening to this, you're in dealerships day in, day out. You see the good, the bad, the ugly. You see the trends happening. Someone who owns their own dealership might just be in one. So that's why I want to ask you, what would you focus on if you bought your own dealership with your own money?
Focusing on the sales area would be lead management. I think there's a lot of leakage out there in terms of leads that are coming into the business. If we're managing our leads and we're getting all those leads to go into a funnel. We're knowing how many opportunities we're getting, right? That's selling 101, right? You need to know that. Second thing is I'd keep my teams accountable for every lead that they take. And that's not just, did you take a lead? Great. Did you log it? Great. Okay, I know that's there. That's only part of it. But how well are they engaging the guest when they're actually calling the dealership, or when they come into the dealership? Are they burning through people? Or are they taking the time, and are they valuing every lead? And it was said to me before, like, every lead costs around 250 to 300 Australian dollars to generate. And I've said it to people before. I said, if you had to pay me $250 to pick up that phone, would you have done a better job? And they go, oh yeah. So imagine that. 550 is going on the table. Okay, I'm going to answer that call. How engaged is that person going to be? So you need to be measuring what the outcome is on the call. So are we greeting, or are we just saying used cars? Are we answering the phone? Because a lot of time, and I'll give you another stat on this in a second, that we've got a measurement called unavailable consultant. That means a guest calls the dealership, speaks to reception, wants to talk to a consultant. The receptionist tries to find a consultant and can't find a consultant for whatever reason. And then the receptionist takes the message and the guest has to be called back later. Sometimes that can be around about 20% in a dealership. During COVID, it was around about 40% because we dwindled our showrooms down and we had all those challenges. But still today, it's nothing to see 20%. We'll look at 100 leads and 20 were unavailable consultant. So making sure the phone's being picked up, right? Another basic, but we missed the basics because we're looking for the silver bullet. And then making sure we're qualifying well. So we're asking, is a vehicle for themselves? Have actually seen or driven one before? How much do they know about the product they're calling about? Will this vehicle be replacing another vehicle? The suburb that they're calling from, have they dealt with the dealership before? Did we sell the benefits about buying from ABC Motors? Did we invite the guest to come in, or if they were a couple of hours away, did we ask them if we can do a FaceTime around the vehicle to show them we really do have that car in stock? I'd say measurement would be the next thing, like, are my staff performing? And then making sure that my managers are connected after the call. So does a call sheet go to my manager? Does my manager have a look at the outcome? If we don't get an appointment, is that process tight? Are we following up that guest together? So a lot of managers out there will give the salespeople some information to go back and call the guests on because they missed the appointment first time round. But the reality is, if they've missed the customer the first time round, it's probably going to happen again. So my rule would be that if we miss the appointment first time round, we set up a follow-up time with the guest, sell them a dream. I want to go talk to my manager. I'll see if I can make that happen. But when we do the follow-up, we call from the sales manager's office in front of the sales manager. Because we know if the salesperson goes back to a desk, they're going to change a bit of the information, right, that the manager talks about. So sharing the load with the salesperson, so the salesperson makes that follow-up call and tells the guest straight away, hey, Mr. Customer, I'm with my manager. His name's Simon. He's asked me to give you a call back and offer you some information about the demonstrators, some great opportunities financially for those demos. Would you consider one of those? And the guest might say, look, I just want to buy a new one. I just want to know what my trade's worth. Is it worth driving half an hour to come and see you? The salesperson can say, look, I'll put Simon on the phone. He may be able to help you a bit more than me because I'm only a salesperson. Here he is. This is Simon. So as a manager, you jump on the phone. Now, I don't know. How often does that happen out there? 5% of the time? How often does it happen in a dealership? Probably 90% of the time when there's a walk-in. Why is it so different? Why not try and turn that 3.5-minute call into a 1-hour opportunity, face-to-face opportunity? And time again, it's no different over there in the UK than Australia. A manager will talk to a customer at the dealership as in a double close or a manager turnover. The manager will close the sale, customer signs up and says, I didn't think I was buying a car today. Yeah, okay, great. They walk off and then the salesperson says, Simon, I asked exactly what you said. The guest said no to me, but said yes to you. I don't get it. And you said, don't worry about it, Steve. It's just because I'm the manager.
It's the second
Right.
person. They've satisfied their
Yeah,
fundamental need for comparison. They've got it. Yeah.
It is, and a salesperson reiterated this to me the other day. And this is where it's good when you talk to the guys that actually do all the selling. They said, what happens when my manager talks to the customer is they can let themselves out of any little lie that they've told me on the initial phone call. So, red hot tip there. Again, don't have to spend any more money. Just do the little things that don't cost you any more money, and you will make more money, right?
Great.
So that's where I'd start.
Yeah, great little nuggets, great little tips there as well. Listen, thank you very much for this. Really appreciate it. How do people get hold of you? What's the easiest way for them to find you, Steve?
LinkedIn would probably be one. Yeah, LinkedIn or on Spotify, but LinkedIn, you can reach out to me.
Go and find Steve Curran. Look for Steve Curran, Curran on LinkedIn. I imagine go and Google Total Selling Solutions as well, and people can get hold of you.
Yeah, and we also run a podcast on Spotify called Keep It Real by Total Selling Solutions. We pump it out every week, just like you do, Simon, and we try and keep it real.
Keep it real.
Keep it real. There's no fluffing around, like in the motor industry where it was like the good straight information. I had a good friend of mine used to say, and he was in the industry for a long time, and just a phenomenal forward thinker. He'd say, look, I like to talk about the stuff that, where the rubber meets the road, right? The real thing, right? So everyone can tell you how to do it, and these are some ways you've got to do it and so on. But where you really hit the spot when you can have people take some information away and they go, I really liked how that guy said that. I'm gonna start focusing on my people and have better conversations. Right. So yeah, that's what we like to do. Keep it real.
Perfect. Keep it real. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it.
So Simon, I'd like to thank you for having me on here, and all the listeners out there that sort of subscribe to your podcast. Hopefully we can all, catch up one day in the flesh.
It sounds good. Well, we'll definitely do it again another NADA, and I'm coming out this year as well. So be Sydney. I'll see if I can get down to Sydney and catch up for a beer. It'd be great.
That'd be great. Okay. Thanks, Simon.
That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, symcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn.